Don't tell me I'm the side piece. I'll help your wife ruin your life.
Sometimes lurker.
First time posting.
And obligatory TLDR warning.
I was reminded of this situation just yesterday, so thought I'd end up posting this story here.
Back in late November 1998,
maybe early December,
I met a great guy at Borders, large chain bookstore that's sadly no longer in business.
In the LGBT studies section, we hit it off. At first talking about a book we were both interested in. Then moved to having coffee and talking for several hours. We exchanged numbers, and he said he'd call me in a couple days to go out. I was shocked to meet someone in such a public place, and admit that any date we would have would end up being in a public place. I was 19 at the time,
but knew from stories how gay bashings usually started like this.
Paranoid? Maybe. Anyway,
he called,
as promised, and we set up a date for that Saturday.
Dinner was amazing. After dinner, coffee at a nearby coffee house ended with us talking until they closed at 1 a.m. He was a gentleman, never made an inappropriate move, and his goodnight kiss was on the cheek no less. I gave it until midweek before I called him and asked if he's like to go out again.
He said he was hoping I'd call, and we made plans for the next weekend.
One thing led to another, and we began seriously dating. By March,
we were pretty serious. Now mind you,
he was 29. Age hasn't been a big thing with me. My hubby is 10 years older than me. And besides,
he didn't mind that I couldn't go out to the bars, since he wasn't too interested in them anyway. From this point,
he'll be BF,
boyfriend, now.
To the point of the lie I mentioned in the title. So late March rolls around, and we're out at a local gay-friendly sports pub watching a baseball game.
Go Cards.
And holding hands as young love does.
So, he excuses himself to use the restroom. And after a minute or so,
a woman walks up to the table.
I expect a verbal bashing to start.
Not the first,
nor last. But she asked me if BF is real name, and I said he was.
She had a look on her face that seemed I just outed him, and not in a good way.
She gave me her number.
Asked I not mention her coming up to the table.
Asked that I call her the next day.
And walks off.
BF comes back, and I didn't say anything, since I was taken aback by what just happened.
I figured this was a family member,
and I,
being young,
didn't want anything to interfere with the night. Next day,
I called.
Apparently the woman was the BFF of his wife. She told me she suspected something was up,
since he'd suddenly starting not being around as much after Thanksgiving.
I asked if she was sure BF was who she thought he was,
since I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She mentioned a few tattoos of his upper arm,
chest, back,
as well as a scar from his appendectomy. Seems he's been married for about the last 6 to 7 years.
And things has cooled in the relationship in the last year. To say I was enraged was an understatement.
I'd never worried about why we hadn't gone back to his place at any point in the time we'd been
dating,
as he told me he wasn't out to his roommates. And I believed him.
That's how things were then for a lot of people.
I ended up asking to meet this woman again, and talk in person.
We'll call her Mary.
Original, I know.
Mary agreed, and we met later that day. She believed me when I told her I didn't know he was married. And she told me that she was at the sports pub that night with a friend, as she normally doesn't even go to that area of the city.
She did tell me she wasn't surprised by what was going on,
as she'd suspected for a while that BF was closeted. Now,
the revenge.
A few days after we met, Mary called and asked if we could meet again.
As the wife,
we'll call her Jan, wanted to meet me. I agreed,
albeit shocked Mary had told her.
Jan was fantastic, and my heart broke for such a sweet woman getting cheated on.
Apparently she knew this would happen. She found some porn that confirmed her suspicions. I found out they did have kids. She couldn't conceive, and I was thankful that there wouldn't be any awkward conversations with them.
I told Jan that I'd end it.
I couldn't be with someone who would sneak around like this.
Mind you, BF and I were safe when we had sex.
But I told Jan that she would need to get a full-spectrum STD test to make sure she was healthy. I also told her she needed to leave BF. Well,
she apparently had gotten tested, was waiting for the results,
and had already gotten a lawyer.
But what she said next floored me.
See, I was happy to end it with BF.
And call him out for what he'd done. Jan,
however, had other ideas.
Seriously folks.
Do not set off nice people. They are scary AF when they snap. Jan asked that I meet up with BF.
Like nothing was wrong.
But that she'd be told the when and where.
I was in. So, for now typical Friday night, BF and I meet up for dinner at our favorite neighborhood coffee shop.
After dinner, Jen showed up.
With Mary. And BF was ghost white. In 20 minutes.
He got called out. Iced coffee thrown on him by Jan and myself. Served with divorce papers. And watched as Mary, Jan,
and I walked out.
Getting high fives from the staff and the owner. To say that Jan took him for everything is an understatement.
BF,
it seems, came from money.
Old money at that. And
didn't sign a prenup. She got half of his inheritance. Their house.
The lakefront house. One of his rental properties.
And alimony.
He ended up having to move out of state.
Jan kept me apprised of the divorce, which went pretty fast since he didn't fight it.
And I offered to be there if they needed testimony or a statement.
I didn't know how all that worked back then.
She told me she'd let me know if they needed me for any part of the process. She did tell me that her STD tests thankfully came back negative.
And she ended up making a pretty penny selling the lakefront house.
Between her having to figure out what to do with a now empty house,
selling the other,
a rental property, and me being in college and working full-time,
we lost touch. However,
I was reminded of this because I ran into Jan yesterday at a local Target of all places.
And she's done well for herself. She took the money from the lakefront house sale,
bought another 2 rental properties, started her own property management company, and she currently owns 8 rental properties.
The best part?
She's using 2 of the properties, 4 family flat-style properties,
to help abused women start over. The other properties are making enough that she's living comfortably, as well as sounding like an amazing landlord.
Mary became her assistant,
and Jan's new husband is the head of maintenance.
They've adopted 3 kids, and she's glowing from how things have turned out so well for her.
She did let me know that her and BF are on friendly terms now, and he's living a happy life with his husband in Seattle. We parted ways, already friended each other on Facebook, and are hoping to meet for lunch within the next couple of weeks.
I was not expecting such a happy ending, but it seems like it's just rainbows all over. An uplifting ProRevenge, go figure.
I just feel super old now that Borders needs a description put in parenthesis next to it.
I loved Borders.
This is amazing and the best ProRevenge I've read in a while.
Half of the inheritance? How was that not separate property?
Mary, Jan,
and I walked out,
getting high fives from the staff and the owner. Why add these unbelievable lines? The Grove has changed quite a bit since 1998.
I don't think Mary would have a problem being there nowadays, haha. Go Cards.
Nice story.
But it, like almost everything else on Reddit,
has the same moral.
Kids.
Always.
Always. Always sign a prenup.
And she didn't give you anything out of the massive alimony plus income from lake houses and rental
property. I'd have thought she should throw at least $100K of lazy money your way for both your help with exiting the marriage and your being caught up in BF's lies.
Great, heartwarming ending to this. Op literally says everybody gave her high fives as she walked out, as if everybody wouldn't think the whole situation was awkward. My bullshit radar is going off hard.
As someone mentioned, inheritance wouldn't count as half of anything.
Also sounds like you picked on a very confused gay man who was secretly closeted. I don't know who's awarded you, but this isn't a good thing that you did. The person was obviously confused and making mistakes. This isn't a typical cheating scenario.
You are definitely an asshole in the situation, and I also don't believe half the shit you said. You reek of desperation and thirst. Somebody get the Aquafina.
I don't know. I don't condone cheating.
But this man clearly had repressed feelings.
Was stuck in a marriage and was looked J&G to live out a side of him he couldn't show his family. Although he went about it in the absolute wrong way.
I don't think he deserved this. Who were you as a 19 years old to mess with his married life like this? Why not just walk away and let him and his wife figure it out? This isn't a feel-good revenge tale at all.
Yes, he's a cheater and he sucks for having done that.
His ex-wife deserved to divorce him. But honestly,
it's kind of heartbreaking that he got such a traumatic experience as well. This was back in the 90s, it seems,
where it wasn't uncommon for closeted gay men to end up trying to live heterosexual lives because of the persecutions of their communities. I don't see how cornering him like that was a good thing.
He definitely did something scummy. And I'm not sympathetic towards people with significant wealth. But to a closeted gay man who went through with a marriage and lived untrue to himself, I can have empathy.
I have empathy to his ex-wife, as she's also a victim of the rampant homophobia of the time, where her ex-husband felt he had to deceive her and the world to live normally. As for Op,
I feel empathy for them being deceived as well.
But I can't really empathize with the way the revenge was done.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.